Hi everyone, this is Dane Dormio, and today I'd like to talk with you about one of the preparation exercises from the daily dose process. This is an exercise called pound heels, and what it does for us is it provides a kind of a massaging therapeutic effect to the whole body. And it's actually very similar to what a professional body worker will do if you're getting a massage and they lift your heels and lift your leg and pound on the heel. It's very similar effect to that, but it's something that you can do for yourself at any time. So first I'll demonstrate the movement from the front and from the side, and then talk about a few of the details and the pitfalls. So this is how it looks from the front. And from the side. So what we're doing here is we're floating up onto the balls of the feet as high as you can comfortably go, and then dropping onto the heels. The more of a dropping effect you get, the more your body is momentarily in free fall, and you get sort of a jarring effect at the bottom, the more effective this movement is. The point is to be in free fall rather than lowering yourself. What this does is it generates a kind of a pulse and a vibration that moves throughout the whole body, throughout the whole skeleton. If your skeleton is aligned, then the pulse will actually go all the way up to the top of the shoulders and the top of the spine. And it generates a certain amount of passive movement and vibrational movement throughout the whole body, which, as we have talked about before, these are good for increasing relaxation, dissolving tension that we're carrying in the body. This is a pretty intense exercise, and it's one that we don't want to overdo. If you did this too much, you would probably notice that it feels uncomfortable. So this is certainly not something that we want to do a whole lot or work through any kind of discomfort. Typically, in the daily dose process, a standard dose is 3 times, and it really doesn't need to be much more than that. You can do it more if you feel like it, but it's something that if you do it too much at once, you'll probably notice that it feels uncomfortable and starts to stress your bones and your joints a little bit. So it's one of those vitamins, it's like one of those vitamins like iron that we need to get a certain amount of, but it's also toxic if we overdose on it. As with all things, the non-exertion principle and the pleasure principle will guide you in how much or how little to do any given exercise. But what this can provide is a sort of invigorating and stimulating sensation over the entire body. And the more the more we drop and are in free fall and are actually impacting the ground, the more potent that effect will be. And it will essentially be as if you're actually jumping and falling and hitting the ground if you do it in free fall. So the effect we want to go for is to float up slowly and smoothly, keeping everything else in balance, and then drop straight. And you'll notice if you drop completely, then there's this kind of jolting, jiggling kind of effect that moves throughout the rest of the body. The whole skeleton will shake a little bit. And that's the effect that we want to go for. What we want to avoid doing is engaging the muscles on the way down, so that rather than falling, we're actually lowering the body like this. This is where I'm lifting the body and then lowering the body with the muscles. What we want is a free fall effect like this. So if this exercise feels a little bit uncomfortable, if it's too intense, it can be dialed up or dialed down. And the way we want to do it is by varying the height. So if you lift up as high as you can onto the balls of your feet. That's kind of the maximum intensity that you can get from this exercise. If that feels too intense for you, then the way to dial it down is by still dropping, but just not from as high up. So you can go as high up as it feels comfortable for you. If you only want to go half an inch or an inch off the ground and drop from there, then that can be less intense, more comfortable, and you're still getting the same kind of beneficial, jolting, passive movement effect. So we want to dial it down by dropping from a lower height, but still dropping and impacting the ground so that we get the jolt, rather than by slowing the descent by engaging our muscles. So this is a movement that you can experiment with and see what it does for you pretty much anytime. It's quick and easy to do. And the way that the breath engages with this is basically in a neutral way. What we actually do with the breath is just allow the diaphragm and the breathing muscles to relax. And what will happen is that when you impact the ground, the jolt, if the whole body is relaxed and the skeleton is aligned, this will force a pulse of pressure up through the torso and kind of force the breath out a little bit. So we'll actually be inhaling on the way up as we're floating, which is typical for anytime we're rising or floating in a movement, we're inhaling, and then dropping, we're exhaling. So inhale, floating up, and then exhale, dropping, or more precisely, just allow the breath to move out naturally when you drop, so that the diaphragm and the breathing muscles get the same benefit from this as the rest of the muscles in the body do. So it'll sound like this. And what you can maybe tell from this is that it's not so much a forced exhale or pushing the breath out as just the passive movement causes the breath to move out. So I think that if you experiment with this movement and play with it a little bit, you'll find that it feels really good, at least if you do it just the right amount. If you do it too much, it probably won't feel very good, and that's a sign that just don't do it that much. Do it so that it feels good. And this is part of the daily dose process, so as part of preparing the body for Qigong, and it has more of a stimulating effect. So if you're in a low energy state, this is something that can stimulate and energize the body, especially has a strong effect maybe right after you get up, right after you get out of bed, or in the middle of the day if you're feeling drowsy and you'd like to be more alert. This is something that can perk up your energy system a little bit. So I hope that this information is useful to you. I hope it's something that you're able to incorporate into your practice and just play with a little bit in your daily life and see how it feels. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for joining me on this lifelong mind-body mastery journey. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.